I'm Chanel Blackman, President of the Barbados Students Association for the year 2020 to 2021. Welcome to our first ever BSA TV episode. We will be having a panel discussion moderated by Miss Mackenzie Gooding. She'll go ahead and introduce our lovely panelists and get right into it.
Hi everybody, I'm Mackenzie Welfare Officer, and today we are talking about COVID and UWI and the mess that has ensued. Today's topic is open back, navigating university in a post-COVID-19 world. And we have the pleasure of having these three lovely panelists with us. We have Javasili over here, Winnet Millington, and Kristen Callender. I'm going to give them the chance to introduce themselves. Quick disclaimer, everybody here has been cleared of COVID. We've been tested, and we follow the people's protocols. Correct. So we're just going to go right into the introduction. Any takers?
Ladies first.
My name is Kristen Callender. I am 21 years old, and I just completed my Bachelor's of Law here at the University of West Indies Cave Hill campus.
Hi, I'm Winnet Millington. Right now, I am studying microbiology with biochemistry, and this is my second year.
And finally, my name is Javasili. I'm 21 years old, and I just completed my Bachelor of Sciences in International Relations with a minor in French.
Okay, so we have people from different faculties here, and what we really wanted to do is get different perspectives on how we manage the COVID-19 crisis, how we manage the crisis as students. So let's really start by catching up. COVID do the most.
Absolutely.
COVID made a mess of
I should say
everything.
She's still making a mess.
Yes, Miss Rona is still making a
roaming.
mess. So let's start by really catching up. What has life in lockdown look like for y'all, in terms of mental health and the restrictions and just everything being turned upside down?
Well, initially it wasn't too bad. Initially, because everybody wants a break. Well, after the break ended and school got on the way, it became a little more difficult, and then you start to miss friends and family and what's not. So I think after, I would say, the first 2 months, then that's when you actually started to feel it.
Well, for me, it was difficult throughout because how law is set up, we didn't get a break. We were working all through the 2 weeks that we were off. Remember, school shut the 17th of March, I believe. Mm-hmm. We were working straight through those 2 weeks, straight through all the way to the end of exams in June. So from the time lockdown started in March till the end of June, I was just working. So for me, it was a mixture of being stressed out, missing friends and family. I would consider myself a homebody, but that really showed me that I'm not really a homebody, So I would say that for me, the period of time was particularly difficult, for sure.
Well, on the other hand, for me initially, I was very excited because I recognized the coronavirus for what it was in terms of the limitless opportunity, not only a natural extension on my work and my projects, but it gave me more time to understand everything. From the time I actually began my degree, the only thing I ever wanted at university was more time to do things, because that's what really makes university. University is very intense. So from the moment that I realized that we would have more time, it wasn't a natural vacation, but I decided to use the time to pick up the slack. But like Winnet, as time went along, you got comfortable, in your own room. For me, I started to miss the human interaction. There was only,
simple things.
Exactly. I really started to get a lot more familiar with my four walls, considering that I spent, more time at, school than I did at home. So it's like, wow, I didn't notice that this was here before, and I lived here, for however long. Yeah. But over time, I would say it picked up the stress because, I was deconditioned from the intensity of school and then reconditioned into actually a more intense period of school.
Well, for me, it was basically everything you guys said. When it started out, everything was okay, I was enjoying my little vacation, one's in chat. It was having fun, and then at a certain point, it was like,
we are really here.
What do I do now? Read all my books, more lives. I watch all the Netflix. And nothing else to do. And then UWI hit, and I was like, me in these classes online. I drop in sleep. I'm making cookies, and my lectures in the background. And I'm like, but other than that, COVID for me, it has slowed down everything. There was so much I wanted to get done, and I'm the type of person who likes to be on track with everything. So for COVID to come and derail everything, it was like, what do we do? This is kind of scary, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, for me, I would basically say that my mental health took a really big hit. Like I had a whole lot of anxiety after, like, cause you know everything up in the air. People losing their jobs, people don't have, and then the supermarket rushing and like all those little things like got to me. So like I had a lot of anxiety. I was very stressed out. Like then they had a little grace period where everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, this feels like a vacation," and I sleeping and catching up on music and doing all this kind of stuff. And then you hit you like a big rock, and like dealing with online classes and teachers that don't know the technology and like you dealing with all of these different things and not having the human aspect of school. Like you were saying you are a homebody. I always thought that I was introverted. I am introverted, but I realized that like people give me energy.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And like I
definitely.
really missed that, and it affected me really deeply. And then like after exams were done, like I fell into this serious like spot of depression. I was like, I should feel happy that I've
Same.
done my degree,
I can't relate.
and I don't.
Can't relate.
And it was like it felt so demotivating because I didn't feel like a win like at all. So it was really rough for me.
To add to what you said, also this is my final year, so I felt like I was robbed of my final year
Yes.
memories.
Same.
You know, and like we had so many plans because in law we have a lot of traditions. Like we take this big picture in front of the faculty, and we have all these different things that we do, and it just felt like I was just robbed of everything. And I have friends from all over the region. I didn't even get to see some of them before they left. Some of them just had to hop on the first plane and go.
home.
And it was just, like you said, after I finished my exams, I just sat down there and it was like, I felt like I worked 3 years and it just felt like, like that feeling when you climb into the top of the mountain and you feel like when you get to the top of the mountain, it's gonna be this beautiful scenery. When I got there, it was just city walls, basically. So that was definitely something that really troubled me, for sure.
Okay, so as you were saying, it was around the 17th of March, so it was like mid-March. So the middle of the semester, the pandemic come and they basically offsets everything. It forces everybody to come out of their comfort zones, and you have to try to figure out what a new normal looks like. So like UWI was no exception. I mean, like the middle of the week, the first time you hear the first case come in Barbados, I was like, yep, that is the end of me at school.
I believe that was a Tuesday.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
a Tuesday.
It was a
I
Tuesday.
literally
Very
did not
awkward.
come to school after that.
I was at school in the cafeteria, and we had like my friends. We had the speaker on the radio, and we heard news, and it was like sign up, and then we were like, oh, okay.
Bye-bye. I will see you when I
As
see you.
soon as the report came through, I said, "Daddy, come for me, please."
We
I'm
had a
going
lecture.
home.
We had a
Going home.
lecture right after
Yeah.
lecture. We went home.
Yeah.
We never came
No,
back.
I didn't go to
We
lecture.
never
Like,
came
I
back.
went home.
One of my friends, he was coughing. And like, saying that news, everybody was like, I was like, please stop following me about. Like,
So the mandatory lockdown and COVID coming and taking over everything. So suddenly, like it kind of ushered in this immediate transition to like going fully online. So I know some of us would have had some experience with like online classes and that kind of stuff. But this is the first time that in the middle of the semester, everything like completely online. So how was that shift? How was moving school completely online?
Well, for me, I would say it was particularly advantageous because I would consider myself a self-motivated learner, and I thrive when I'm able to control my own learning conditions. So I would say that being able to access the resources and learn at my own pace really helped me to not only learn better, but I would say that it actually pretty much produced the best results I ever had at university. I got all A's this semester, which it's not the first time, but it was the first. But I think it was the first time that I felt like I was so responsible for it. I would say that I consider myself. I prefer to learn, at home, but school didn't really provide me the opportunity to do that because classes are here. So from the time I was able to, learn in my favorite conditions, I think I was allowed to be a lot more comfortable, sleep when I want, eat when I want, and not have school set my routine for me.
I see. I think honestly, it worked to an extent. In the case of, I would say in SciTech especially, I'm not certain about the computer sciences, but for biochemical sciences, in our case, we had a little taste of it throughout the semester. So as much as it was very swift, a very, very quick change, we still had somewhat of an experience of it in the past. So we had a couple quizzes, you would do certain things online, you would come to class, you have little work posted online, and then you come to class, you bring it to class. But moving into something so drastic, I think that was the difficult part. Not that we could not get it done, but there was so much to do online now, rather than it just being piece here and piece there.
For me, I would say it varied from course to course and lecture to lecture. One of my lecturers, he immediately recorded all the rest of the lectures that we needed, and I could peruse them on my own time, and that was very helpful. Another one of my lecturers, she's special needs, so we were used to the online platform when she wasn't feeling well, and so on and so forth. So that helped. But then there were other lecturers who didn't know how to use the platforms, struggled. They tried, but I don't think some of them tried hard enough. And then, they were kind of, it was wishy-washy for some people. And then for law, we require resources from the law library. So not being able to have updated legislation, books, it was very, 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 very difficult. And you can find legislation online, but they may not have the amendments that we would need to have updated legislation, which is disastrous if you're writing a paper and you write old legislation on your paper. So I would say for some courses, some of the lecturers were able to provide the materials that we needed, and others not so much. So it was easy on some fronts and difficult on others, but overall it was not as bad as a transition as I thought it was.
I'd say for the GSSWP Department of the Faculty of Social Sciences, in my opinion, they handled the transition very well.
I agree.
Very, very, very well. My lecturers in particular were very understanding. They were very caring. There were times where we were supposed to have a lecture, and the lecturer would be like, well, we just got a whole set of cases. Some of you must be really anxious. Let's not have class today. Take some time. Material was put up, exam topics and the format. We got everything well beforehand. And I feel as though they handled it very well. And because they handled it so well, I was able to, take all that process, prepare myself, and then jump into it.
I think for me, what was the biggest difference, because I'm also in GSSWP, so it's a lot of letters. But like for me, I think it was more so the actual classroom environment and the change in the classroom environment itself that really affected me more than like the resources getting put up. Because like you had lecturers that were better at the whole technology aspect. So you have people who like actively understood understood BBC, understood Zoom or whatever. So that was interesting, and it was cool to see how quickly they transitioned and tried to make it as easy as possible. Like I had like two specific lecturers that worked really hard to try to make it seem as much as the in-person classroom as they could, but there's only so much that you can really do. And like Java was saying, he is more of a self-motivated learner, learning at home, that kind of stuff. I can read at home and that kind of stuff, but I thrive off discussion and bouncing points off
The actual classroom environment.
in the actual classroom environment. So changing from being able to interrupt somebody mid-sentence on a point to having to press a button on Zoom and waiting to be acknowledged, like that was it was frustrating at times. Like sometimes I wouldn't even bother to go to class, or I would shut down the laptop in the middle of class because I can't keep up with you.
I used to be making breakfast.
I used to be doing all kinds of things.
If I had a 9 o'clock class, I would set up the laptop there on the island, and they're making breakfast, and I would just.
And sometimes it would just end up being like background noise because, like having to like mute your mics and people in their background noises and dealing with that whole the whole environment was not necessarily conducive for me because of the way I learn. I'm audio visual, so like not having the access to people and it oh dear.
Right. I think one's experience would vary based
Yeah.
on their
Yes.
conditions. I would say that based on some of the experiences of my own classmates, I realized that I was privileged to have the right conditions.
Right.
I live in
Yes.
St. Philip, which is pretty far and it's pretty quiet, so I didn't have the regular interruptions. I didn't really have, family members. I had my own space that I could actually, like learn at my leisure. But I would actually say that because the classroom environment shifted to one that was online, I worked harder than I would had I been at school because I didn't have the structure. Even though there was the structure of a timetable, I would work from about 8 o'clock in the morning, sometimes all the way till 12 o'clock at night. And that actually started to wear down my energy levels as the semester progressed. And I hadn't even realized that. But, I remember at the time I was perusing Twitter and I realized that people were really upset with, UWI administration because, the constant barrage of information and updates seemed insensitive. But, I started to realize it for what it was and that, UWI just wanted to make sure that we were not only informed, but we were able to adapt to the changes really well. So I think UWI has to be commended on that. I also agree with Chanel and Mackenzie in that the government of social work, sociology,
Department
the
of
department
Government,
right, government,
sociology,
A lot of
social
social
letters.
work,
A lot of
psychology.
For
letters.
those of you who didn't know what that acronym meant, that's what it means. I think that they did a great job in terms of the lecturers trying to, actually be sincere, caring, and conducive to the mental health of the students, because I think the most challenging part of this period was the adaptation that we had to go through as students, because being a political science student is very stressful because you understand everything that's going on. So you start to think about the implications, you start to think about what this means and what that means, and it starts to weigh down on you. So I think I only learned how to detach after it all was finished.
I agree. I think though, as Kristen would have mentioned, for a lot of lecturers, navigating the actual programs was the largest issue. Not that they were not trying, because some of them tried very, very hard, but they just did not understand what exactly they needed to do. So they tried, but in some cases, some would have failed here and there. Also, especially in the case of environment, I know of persons who have a lot of siblings, and
Like myself.
exactly, who have a lot of siblings. They live in areas which are very noisy, and for them, I think that was the largest difficulty for them. So they can't focus, or one sibling has to study. I think the primary school students, because my sister, she had her own laptop set up. I had mine. She had her class. I had mine. But there are persons who will not be able to do that. So
Sharing
you have
devices.
class and your sibling has class, and what exactly do you do
Jostling,
now?
yeah.
Exactly. So the constant back and forth. So I think that, honestly, and then too, in cases where I could bounce off of you, as you were saying, for aid, I might not be able to contact you now, so I don't know what to do. And everything is up in the air. So persons who thrive off of the actual interactions, in-person interactions, I think that would also be a difficulty.
Yeah, definitely. Environment was definitely a difficult thing for me. I have a 4-year-old brother, and he runs all of the place. And it was Kristen, and I'm like, I'm in class. So that was definitely difficult for me. But I have classmates also who, some of them didn't have access to internet. At some points, especially some parts of Jamaica, the internet and electricity situation was horrible. So that situation was just difficult for a lot of students. And then in terms of the interaction, the classroom interaction, my degree was predicated on bouncing, ideas off each other. Law is about debating one another and so on and so forth. So when you are sitting down in class and you see people typing in the chat box, like you writing points and you can't respond like how you usually would, it takes away from the learning experience, especially for me, because I was one of those students. I would be at school till the library closed at 11, and all of us would be in the lunchroom sitting down discussing different topics. So having that taken away from me was very difficult, because that's one of the ways I was able to learn and one of my learning styles.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think one of the unfortunate realities about this period is that people fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
And that there's not, you can only do so much. And I think to a large extent, UWI has tried. I think
Yes,
students have
I
tried. I
agree.
think everybody in the process has tried. But inevitably, there will be some who fall through the cracks. There will be people
You
who
can't
struggle.
save everybody.
I know my grades took a hit. I know a lot of people whose grades took a hit. I also know people who were able to use this period to really
elevate
rise.
themselves. Yeah.
So it's been different for everybody, and is unfortunate, but that's unfortunately what it is. And I think that's why it's important to have these kind of conversations, so you get where people are coming from and you hear different perspectives, so you can plan and go forward accordingly and try to do as best as you can.
Yeah, and I want to take this time to thank the Guild of Students
Yeah.
because
Yes.
they were extremely professional and extremely helpful in how
Definitely.
they handled the situation, getting information out to students, hampers out to students. I think that was really, really nice. So just a big thanks to them.
Big ups.
But we had the teleconferencing software. It's like we had everything we needed to really get through. You know, it's only UWI that would have paid for software like Blackboard, Collaborate, and Zoom to facilitate. That would have made, I guess, me more grateful. But the onus was really on us to be a lot more, not only sensitive and aware of some of our classmates' needs, but a lot more, I guess, responsible for making sure that they got through too. And that's what really is all about, using your privilege to help others.
I don't think I would have got through if I did not have my friends. I think,
Definitely.
honestly, a lot of quarantine I actually spent on Zoom.
Wow.
So even saying, you have class and I don't understand something, and then somebody will call and we're saying, on the call for hours, just trying to help for a little minute, figure out what exactly it is that I don't know, and then if one person understands, the other helps. So I think, honestly, if I had to do it on my own,
Trouble.
exactly.
Well, one thing that one of my lecturers always says that we don't run out of paper, so everybody could get their degree. You understand? So any way you can help somebody get through, help them. You know, especially in a novel situation like that. We in the middle of a pandemic, like
Exactly.
like a pandemic. You know,
And
so
then especially for mental health.
For
So
sure.
actually having someone to talk to, even if it may just be the whole schoolwork that you're discussing,
yeah,
at least it helps rather than feeling like you're
it's
by
hard.
yourself and you have to do all of this on your own.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's
Sure.
very easy to get lost in your own thoughts.
As the resident psychologist of my friend circle, let me tell you, I had DMs and I was like, guys, I had a friend who messaged me and she was legit having a breakdown because she was like, people are dying. I've been reading pandemics last like 1 to 2 years, and
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh my god, relax. And then I was like, you know what, guys, after every class, like, when we're all finished, we're gonna meet on Zoom some nights and just chill
talk.
and just
That's a
lime.
great
That's
rest.
exactly what we
Just
did.
lime.
Yeah.
You know,
That's exactly
bring,
what
bring
we
your
did.
juice, bring your wine. we can just chill. We use the platform. We played Would You Rather. We watch movies.
Yes,
You
we
know?
played music together.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
had their
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
separate platform
Definitely.
to dance.
Mhm.
Honestly, I think that because I know further down we're talking about positives, but I think that is one of the biggest positives.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say, well, physically it did not bring us closer, but in all other
Yeah.
aspects, we
Yeah.
were brought closer together.
You don't realize
Yeah.
how much you don't talk to people
Yes.
until you were forced to be in a situation where all you had to do was talk.
Talk to people.
So like I had
That's all you
some
could do.
some of my classmates we created a group chat with about 20 of us that usually hang around each other and stuff, and we were on a night we were up cackling 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Just say this stuff from Twitter, and it's just laughing, and we got to learn so much about one another, and it was a good thing because it was like I've been at this school for 3 years, and some of y'all really don't even know your last name like that.
Yeah.
Which is great. I will show you every day that I don't have to, but I don't know a thing about you. And this situation really helped me to, get to learn a lot of people better and form friendships and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah.
I actually know why that is, but I don't know if that's appropriate. We still filming?
We're listening.
No, I'm so sorry. No,
We're
because
listening,
I started reading this book recently called The Devoicing of Society, Why Humans Don't Talk to One Another Anymore. And that's the reason that we had this experience during the coronavirus, is because as we grew up, relationships, we started to focus on relationships less, and we only started to talk to one another to primarily exchange information. So once we didn't have to, exchange information, we actually started to focus on knowing the other person. And that's why we communicate so differently, that's why we communicate so much differently to our grandparents.
I think it would benefit us though in the future.
Yeah.
As bad as it was, I think we needed this period of whew, I can't even say bad is not even a word to cover it. It was just whoa.
Definitely.
After this, I think we will be a lot closer. It should be easier for certain persons.
For me, because of how demanding my degree was, I wasn't able to spend a lot of time socially with people that don't go to UWI.
Same.
A lot of my close friends, and I could definitely say that this period helped me become a lot closer with them. Like sometimes we would be on the video call every night. You know, once I finished study, I'll be like, guys, I need to just unwind. And we would just be on the call for hours, just talking about anything or nothing, you know. So definitely, the relationships are strengthened because of that.
Love to see it.
Of course. Of course.
So yeah, we gotta talk about the big E, exams.
Oh,
Lord.
Our exams and these
can I
assessments
even
and
remember how
essays.
exams went?
It's like a blur.
Well, for me, it was assessments were completely separated from exams.
Oh, yeah.
So, like I told y'all earlier, I didn't really have a break. So, from time lockdown started, I was doing midterms. And my midterms went all the way down to basically right as exams started, which was horrible. Horrible. Some assignments were easier than others, so I was able to get those out of the way, but some of them I had to write 2 5,000 word papers. And
I saw those veterans.
yes, and they were, you know, trying, but I got through. In terms of exams, my biggest and only real, you know, point of contention was the 24 hours. Because I had a case where I was doing 2 exams at the same time in the same 24-hour period, and I almost died.
Wow.
You know?
That's not even an exaggeration.
It is not, you know. So it literally started like I had like 6 questions to do in 24 hours, 6 essay questions to do in 24 hours, and I did not sleep for that entire day. And then I had an exam 2 days later, so I didn't even have time to rest after. So it's not a point of that something we really could have done, because at the end of the day, they had to get the exam scheduled. But in terms of my experience, having 24 hours to do these essay type questions was very, very, very difficult for me. So yeah.
Understandable. Well, I had a number of assessments. As for exams, in some cases they changed it from an exam to coursework, to all coursework, meaning that I had more coursework to complete. And having to do that and having to do coursework for other courses as well, to me was a lot. And for me, I don't think that it was only having so much to do, but for some reason, I could not separate it. So for me, it was, oh my gosh, am I finish this? Da, da, da. So I always felt I was going until it finally finished. As for the exam itself, I think I had exams for either 1 or 2 courses. And my major issue there was that I could not go back. I am the type of person that when I lock the door before I leave my house, I go back and I check it out twice. So I walk down the steps and I go back and I check it again. So not being able to do that in an exam, I answer the question and I sit down and I stare at it like, can I move forward? Should I move forward? Are you right or aren't you? And I'm staring at it, I don't know what to do, if not to answer no. For me, that was my biggest difficulty, because I honestly, I kind of felt like I was in a box. And it was just, I don't know what to do in this situation. But otherwise, I think that the effort was there. They did try. And also, you're trying to prevent persons from cheating, they said. And I think that is why they put those measures in place. But I don't believe that the measure that they used in the case of not being able to go back was the best one. So for me, that just gave me anxiety. But I think overall, I made it. So
I think, well, my exam period was rough. It was extremely stressful. Like, I only had 1 multiple choice exam, and I think that was the saving grace. But the same thing that you were talking about, the whole thing with not being able to go back, that was annoying, honestly. Because, like, usually when I do an exam in person, I go back, I check over the paper or whatever, so that I'm confident in my answers or whatever. Beyond that multiple choice, we had a lot of essay assessments. So you had essay assessments and then exams that were also essays. And in this, well, we have 48 hours. rather than the 24. But it was still very, very stressful because they were so back to back. And one of my friends was telling me, oh, but if you had the exams in person, you would only have 2 hours. And I ranted the same time, because if I had these 2 hours, I don't have these 2 hours. I don't have to go and do a whole research, whole bibliography, write up this and that. I know the topic. I come and I talk about the topic. I solidify my points. I say what I'm saying. I had it in. Those 2 hours gone, it is over.
Yeah.
Like, I'm having 48 hours now, and sometimes having to write 2 or 3 essays back to back, and not being able to really take breaks and eat and sleep and that kind of stuff. It seriously took a toll on the body, because you would think, okay, you got 48 hours. If you finish it in the first day, you can sleep the next day. But for me, I'm a nocturnal worker, so I get most of my work done during like 10 o'clock at night and 4 o'clock in the morning. So if the exam opens at 10 o'clock in the morning, I lose about 12 hours. Like, I would try. Like, I would sit down with the laptop and the book, and I would try writing and all this kind of stuff, but it would not flow. Nothing would come or episode, because that's not when I work best. So I lose that time, and then I'm pressed for time. So it was really stressful, and not being able to eat and sleep really, really did a number on me physically. So by the time exams were over, I was just done with everything. I shed real tears. It was really, really stressful. It was really hard.
Like you said, the whole working at night thing, and that is mostly because I do not do well in heat at all. I cannot operate in these desert things. I cannot. So for me to actually get stuff done, I need to be cool. I got an AC in my house, and my last fan actually, but it blowing bare hot air.
Felt.
So it's like I gotta wait until 7 o'clock. The sun needs to go down. So that's when I am working. So like, as you said, I am pressed for time, and I'm extremely stressed because I'm stressed. I'm like, oh my God, will this be done? Will I get this handed in? I cannot find information on this topic. These sources look a bit iffy. I don't know what I'm doing. And then there were times where, like, I love essay. I love essay. I got like 2-3 essays due back to back, and I'm like, start this. I got 3 essays, all in the middle. Don't know how to end them, and because I know I have 3 essays and I know how to end them, I'm freaking out, I'm wasting time. So I feel as though I did not perform at my best. Because I was scared. I was like, I don't know what to do here. Like, as Vanessa said, I felt as though I was in a box. And then in particular, there was one exam. The essay question was write about your COVID experience, and these questions were very, very specific, and I felt as though it was very insensitive. Like, you were asking students to write about this very personal experience for you to sit and mark it. And a whole lot of students felt like that concern was felt across the board, and they was like, Shana, I can't do this. I cannot do this, because every time I sit to write this essay, I cry. So I'm a very compassionate person. Like, oh my God, I could understand why this particular essay for you is hell. One of their parents died. So I'm supposed to write, how did COVID-19 change your family dynamic?
Oh my God.
No. Oh no.
Wow.
So this not for me, but for others, yeah. Exams rough.
Well, for me, I always thought that I worked better under pressure, but the coronavirus pandemic, it taught me otherwise, you know. I think for me, the issue with the pandemic was how much of a mental challenge it proved. So I had to start to focus, I had to start to ground myself daily in order to make sure that I got the quality of work that I am accustomed to. I'm not gonna lie and, romanticize the examination period and say that, it was great. I mean, in retrospect, I don't think we could have asked for a better examination period in terms of how, international relations exams were spaced out. I don't think that the questions were super difficult because we were already familiar with the material. And having had the privilege to represent the University of the West Indies at the Harvard National Model UN and, meet friends from Ivy League universities all over the world, I think that we had it pretty good because they had it terrible. For me, on a personal level, I would say that exams were stressful. I think that's because my focus started to become really, really shaken because I tried to force myself to complete the work as fast as possible. I tried to put, I tried to set, time limits for my examination, but I started to get really exhausted because I was exerting a lot of mental energy, thinking constantly. But, over time, I just realized that I just need to relax. When I relax, the information flows. And it becomes, I think, a better quality work. For us, we had to do all essays, all research papers. And, I might not have, love research per se, but it's a skill, and I realized that that's what UWI was trying to develop in us. So it's a skill that I had to practice. So I broke down the questions and just started to portion it out so that I'd be able to complete the exams in as good a time as possible. I think it worked out. My strategy worked out because I got all A's in the end. I would do that again. But I don't think I would ever want to do exams through a pandemic ever again because CNN was on in my house all day, every day. BBC was on in my house all day, every day. Brass Tacks was on in my house all day, every day. And that was the most stressful part of the pandemic, just this constant barrage of information.
Yeah.
And I really started to understand, the saying on a more personal level, ignorance is bliss. Because the less I knew, I felt the more comfortable I was. So there were periods of time where I just wanted to shut off myself from hearing anything just so that I could focus on what was going on. I would say that it was easily the most distracting examination period because, like Chanel, I'm compassionate. So to watch some of my friends just start to freak out and full on break down, I didn't feel particularly helpless, but it helped me to ground myself a lot more. I actually started an online nonprofit in the middle of a pandemic to help students on Instagram called Sun Study to give them tips and advice on how to master school in the classroom, no matter where it is. So if you guys want to follow it, it's at Sun Study. I wasn't shamelessly plugging myself. I promise.
I love it.
But I realized that I could use the relative strength that I had to help others who really were struggling. I think that building communities is important, and I think that what we all express is that had we not had our friends, I don't think we would have made it.
Grateful for all the lecturers in SLAE to actually handle the exam period, specifically biological and chemical sciences, especially seeing the fact that the lecturers would have had their own difficulties, a lot of examinations, and especially with the persons who were not able to navigate the programs correctly or in the best way, it would have been difficult for them too, so we also have to consider that.
Okay, cool.
Well, for me, I have some issues with how things were run with the law faculty, mainly the time limits. Well, the word limits and the time limits, but mainly the word limits. So all of our exams are essays. And you give us a problem question, it has like 5 to 6 issues, and you want us to do it in 1,500 words. Now, when I'm in an exam room for 2 hours, I don't have a word limit. I can just write freely and express my thoughts. But when you add the added pressure of word limits on top of trying to answer these very long questions, it was very difficult. My final exam, I spent 3 hours just cutting words. 3 hours alone, and this was after I finished both questions, So I would say for me that was one of the most difficult parts of my exam period, just trying to write within 2,000 words, 1,500 words, and that is not a lot for law. Anybody that knows law or has encountered law knows that we need 3,000 words in some cases, not all cases, but in some cases. So for me that was very difficult to do. So yeah.
So yeah, we talked a lot about how it was and the experiences and that kind of stuff. But like, are there any positives that really came out of this whole situation?
I'd say the chance to, I think someone said it earlier, the bonding. Although it wasn't physical, we got to know each other better, and we learned to appreciate the small and simple things in life. Like, I really took sitting in the cafeteria with my friends for granted. Like,
Yeah.
like I knew that I enjoyed it, but not how much I enjoyed it and how much it meant to me. And another positive would have been, I think the environment got a break. Earth said, alright, enough of
Time
y'all
to breathe.
Yeah.
inside. So for me, those were two really big positives.
I think a big positive would have been the fact that how we learn is now, I think, a lot more conducive to us because I guess I consider us digital natives. So it's not like we had to go and learn, you know, a whole new set of like software, had to go and learn to use something else. The technology was pre-existing, so it was just for us to apply it to education. I think that was a huge plus. I think that going forward, we're going to be a lot more familiar now with not only change, but constant change. Because, you know, change begets change. So I think that now we are more accustomed to pivoting really quickly. I think we're also going to be, I think, a lot more productive because, you know, the platforms that we use to learn are, you know, more familiar to us. It doesn't feel as though we're like 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the future, but we're 2 feet now in the future, in my opinion.
For me, I see this as an opportunity to expand on remote learning. Because a lot of our student population are working population, you know, and this would give them opportunities to be able to complete their degrees instead of having to, I gotta come all the way up to UWI for class. And it promotes being able for more people to be able to get their degree in their own time in a manner that suits them and their schedule. A lot of people have children, a lot of people have jobs and other responsibilities outside of UWI. I had classmates who will literally be coming in from work, who had to get late tutorials because just to accommodate their schedule. And remote learning is something, not even just remote learning, working in general, the working class and so on and so forth. It shows you that you can be more versatile with how people do things now because of technology. So yeah.
Well, to add to what Chanel has said, I think for a lot of persons, they're going to enjoy the simpler things. So rather than, okay, we need to do this and we need to do that, simply calling and, you know, watching the movies together, things like that, I think a lot of persons are going to be doing that a lot more often now. And in the case of technology, especially in my case, I think it forced me to learn certain things. In the case where, yes, I can do things on the computer, I can do things on my phone, but actually being able to use the programs, I think that I can do that now. Solely because I had no choice but to. And I think that is also positive.
Yeah, and just piggybacking off that point, because what I really wanted to talk about, for me, the big plus has been efficiency. Because when you force people to have to go out of their comfort zones, when you force organizations and governments that have to go to their comfort zones, you have no choice but to go online or to go digital. So even though there is still resistance and there will always be resistance, I think the fact alone that you had a pandemic going on and there were things that the government needed to get done or that you needed to get done that they had no choice but to go digital and streamline the technology and that kind of stuff. I think it has like ushered in a new age of efficiency because when my mother went for her police certificate of character last year, like she had to get up in a line and like it took the whole day and that kind of stuff. Then the other day I was on Twitter and I saw somebody who said like the whole process was online and it was about 20 minutes payment included. I was like, these are things that could have been done for years. But like now that you're forced to do it, you realize how much more efficient a process can be. And the same thing with remote learning and remote working. When you think about it, do I really need to rent a building to host all these people to do this job when they can all do it from a laptop at home?
Correct.
Yes, there's a social environment that should be fostered at work and at school and that kind of stuff. But I think you realize a lot of money don't need to go into certain things. A lot of energy don't need to be going into certain things. And if you can do it online, that it is okay to do it online, that people are willing to learn and people are willing to grow through the process. So I think a lot of growing has happened, especially in the efficiency department.
On that point, I actually was responding to the question in the context of just like a student-based learning environment. But the same points that Mackenzie mentioned, I had written in an article, I think it was about a month ago for Nationwide, and I actually made special effort to mention that right now, COVID, well, the coronavirus has caused so many things, to happen that it caused a lot of options to be realized, that were unexplored for the sake of tradition.
Yes,
And we know
definitely.
personally, I guess, being born in the years between 1998 all the way, and experiencing and growing up with technology at its various stages, we knew the possibilities that existed, so we tended to expect differently of the government. But like Mackenzie said, now we actually are forced to, be more efficient, and that's one of the things that I'm most excited about, especially with regard to Barbados.
I also like that a lot of persons now have tapped into other skills.
Yes.
Picked up some hobbies. Persons are cooking. You see persons selling food. Persons are learning to do things that you would never think that they will learn to do. And I also think that that is a positive. Even in the case of, say, the older generation, I found that at my church, there are actually persons who are in their elderly years, and now they have services on Zoom.
Yeah.
And those are persons who you don't expect to be familiar with technology in itself. So now, as I was saying before, now you're forced to learn it. They're also able to navigate those programs, and I think that's very good.
My grandmother definitely can use WhatsApp better than me.
Same.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
I think that we should also highlight the fact that there's been this entrepreneurship boom
Yes.
that could have existed for the longest time. It's just that there's been a much greater embrace now of social media, especially in its potential, for commerce. And as a political science student, it makes me really excited to see how things could potentially change, because these things could have happened all before. For anything we want to do, there's an app or a software that's able to facilitate it. And now that globalization is making sure that barriers are coming down, I think
Correct.
the international cash flow is going to actually, I see a lot of potential in how the international cash flow could actually not only save economies, but save people like us.
Definitely.
I also think though that they came together as in the same entrepreneurs. I think they realized finally that we actually need one another and we cannot do it by ourselves. And I realized that you see a lot more now persons supporting other persons. So being at home, using the use of the internet, especially on Twitter, on IG, you will see, say, Java sharing something that Chanel posted, and then this person's business is booming now
Yeah.
because everybody is supporting one another, and I really like that.
Yeah, I could definitely say for Barbados, this space, the commercial space that we have, now that we're not relying on tourism, this is a prime opportunity for us to find other sectors to be able to boost our economy and help float our boat, essentially, especially through this pandemic.
Sustainably too.
For me, like one of the biggest things I realized is how much we really do rely on the informal economy.
Yep.
Like
Yes.
especially when supermarkets were only open, you could only go specific days or whatever. So like I realized I get plantains from somebody that works with my father. I get eggs from somebody else.
Yeah.
Correct.
I pick up vegetables from this body. I grow my own vegetables. Like you realize how much you rely on these like neighborhood connections or who you know
Definitely.
connections. I was like, it's actually possible to survive and like
It's
So
a lot
right.
stronger. Exactly, it's a lot stronger now.
And when you really think about it, like relying on a single industry has never been sustainable. And I think what COVID has done is force people to realize that you can't rely on people deciding to come down here every summer to keep an economy afloat. Because what happens when they can't? And I think yes, there were ways that we could have adapted differently, but I think for the most part we've done well in
I
terms
believe
of
definitely.
trying to stay afloat and keep people together. Yes, there were losses, like I said, people always fall through the cracks, but I think for the most part we've done well in terms of trying to keep the country afloat.
I think so.
For sure.
Yeah.
Another one positive for me that I don't think is talked about enough, COVID showed us exactly how much more attention we need to give to mental health.
Yes.
Oh, definitely.
Yes, for
Definitely,
sure. COVID
definitely,
showed
definitely.
us the good, the bad,
ugly.
and all of the ugly.
All.
It showed us that, we just can't leave people here, that the simplest things can trigger you, and it caused us to look at ourselves and see what was wrong and to dig up in all of that mess and attempt to fix it.
Yeah.
And I think being placed in this situation, persons found new ways to help others. So it's no longer the regular stuff, as people would say it. But now you have all these little creative ways to do things. I can call, now I can Zoom, and we can do this. The conferences, businesses, no longer flinging everybody down. I mean, you can't at this point. But now the way that things are done, as you said, it's more efficient. And I think that we've come to a point where we can do it well. So I'm very pleased.
All right, so we kind of winding down now, and we talked about a lot of things, but like, it's one thing to criticize and like give commentary and feedback and that kind of stuff, but like going forward, like if you were to redo this semester, we are not redoing last semester, but hypothetically speaking, if you had to, for the first time, like do a semester in the middle of a pandemic all over again, like what would you do differently?
Sleep less, work more. Wait, no, sorry. Work less, sleep more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, how many did?
I
Yeah,
think I'd
that's-
be prepared for it.
You'd be prepared?
And if it were not in the case that it were to occur again, I know what to expect, so I can handle it better. I can't necessarily say exactly what I would do, but I know I'd be more relaxed, for sure.
I think for me, it's just a case of there was nothing more I could have done because of the amount, the volume of work I had to do. I just think that I would just put my space, my mental space somewhere where I could handle it a bit better.
Okay.
So yes, that's what I would say. for
Pretty
sure.
much everything Vinay and Crystal have said. Just learn from the past experience. Manage my mental time, my mental space better, and move from there.
I think for me, yeah, like everybody's saying mental health, and I think for me, because I had a lot of anxiety going on, I think
Definitely.
when I had information, I was able to function. So I think if I had to do this again, I would focus more on getting information, knowing, disconnecting from the news and the constant barrage of everything, and work from there, because I can function best when my head is functioning best.
Okay.
So I think that's what I would do differently. So yeah, y'all enjoyed this? 'Cause
Yeah, I
Yes,
did.
I
This is
did.
great.
Let's do it.
Yes,
Let's
yes.
do it.
I would do it again.
For sure.
Of course.
I would do
Any-
this again.
Yeah.
So
Not this semester.
Yeah, not at all.
any final thoughts? Like,
Well, I mean, at this point, the most I can say is that we have to be grateful. We have to applaud University of West Indies for trying their hardest. I think in comparison to a lot of other schools overseas or elsewhere, they have done an exceptional job. It is not easy, and yes, there are things that could have been improved, but having to do it so quickly, having to change everything so quickly, I think they, for the most part, succeeded.
It was not perfect. I was not happy all the time. I'm not gonna be sugarcoat anything, but I will say I was able to finish my degree, thank God. And for me, I think that that's the biggest accomplishment, and we came out alive, for lack of a better
in
word.
one piece,
You know, so in one piece, yeah. So for me, it was just, it's a novel situation, never seen it before, and we did the best that they could. And it's one thing to sit down and complain about the things you didn't like, but you have to say, if I was in this situation and privy to the information that they were privy to, they did the best that they could given the circumstance.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that's definitely what I would
I
say.
also think that, UB has the whole goal of becoming a smart campus. So I feel as though this was like a wake up and a shake up as
Yeah.
to what a smart,
Smart
campus,
campus.
really is.
Yeah.
And they are headstream and going towards that goal. And before we wrap up, I want to shout out Mackenzie, Crystal, and Java. You finished your first degree. That is, and in a pandemic, like,
Yeah,
like,
finish
you know,
it is
like,
win.
Class of 2020, watch. out.
Exactly.
It shows you what you
Finition is
can
the win.
do. It
Watch
shows you what
out.
you can do.
Yeah.
For sure.
I don't
Sure.
think that if anybody had mentioned it in the past and said, doing school in a pandemic, that anybody would say, yes, I can get it done, of course. I think now, though, actually experiencing it, you realize that I could handle the situation. I did it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I have to echo the sentiments of Lynette. I think that I always believed that I was very resilient, but learning through a pandemic showed me how much more resilient I am. To me, the biggest challenge really was mental conditioning, and that's something that I'm going to be drilling and repeating in my head all the time, because I believe that repetition begets repetition and change begets change. So just making sure that I ground myself mentally, understanding what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to do it is going to be how I pretty much base all of my future responses, to be honest.
I mean, for me also, after UWI, I actually start law school in October.
Congrats.
Thank you. And my entire first half of my year is going to be online because I'm not able to travel to Trinidad because their borders are still closed. So I definitely think that this experience will help me be able to navigate this new style of learning online. I have to do 4 months online, and then we will reevaluate me traveling in January. But I definitely think that these couple months here definitely prepared me and prepped me. So, okay, I know what to expect. I know what to do. I know to set up my days. I know what space to put my head in to get work done. So definitely I could say it was very advantageous in that respect. So,
yeah. I think what I would leave us with is give yourself a little grace.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like
it was hard.
love
it's
yourself.
a pandemic.
Love for yourself.
Like give yourself a little grace. I think we all have done the best that we could under the circumstances. I think even if we didn't do our best, we learned things about ourselves. I think we identified spaces of growth. We found ways to introspect and learn about the way we interact with other people, the way we view learning, the way we view school. And I think when you give yourself a little grace, you can see things for what they are and move forward. So give yourself a clap on the back because you're here. And like finishing is a win, whether that's an exam or a semester or a year or a degree. Like just being here and the fact that you lived through it and you survived it and you came out on the other end, I think that's a win. And wins don't always feel like wins, but that don't make it any less of a win.
Correct.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's what I would leave us with. So thank you so much to the panelists for being so willing and eager to
It was
come
our
out.
pleasure to
This
be
was
here.
a lot of fun. It was really interactive and I really enjoyed it.
It was good.
And thank you to you, the viewers, for watching. And
Thank you.
And if you have your own thoughts and things, like drop them in the comments. Like we want to hear from y'all. Thank you so much for joining this first broadcast of BSA TV channel 246. We have more content coming soon, and yeah, just stick around. Subscribe to the channel, by the way. Subscribe, press the bell, and turn on for notifications.
Like,
comment, share.
Press the bell on our YouTube stuff.
IGTV, follow,
Turn on your
share.
notification bell.
I doing it right? Share,
Follow.
like, comment, notifications, hit the bell.
We'll leave
Ring
a
the
link in
bell,
the
ring the
description
bell.
box for the
Yes.
IG.
Yeah.
It's a fact.
So thank you so much for joining us this first time, and we will see you guys next time, probably with some different panelists. But yeah, we will see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.